Hi, this is IK Tutors, and we're here to do a HESI math question. So let's jump in and do this. Okay. So the question states, present the sum of the mixed number in simplest form. Right. And it gives us a mixed number, 1 1/2 plus 12 ninths. So we have to follow the rules for fractions, right? Whenever we have a question involving fractions, all the numbers must be in fractional form. Here we have a mixed number. So we have to put this mixed number in fractional form. So let's go ahead and do that on the side. We have 1 1/2. And the way to do this is we're going to multiply the denominator by the whole number and then add the result to the numerator. So 2 times 1 is going to give us 2, plus 1 is going to give us 3. So our equivalent fraction is going to be 3/2. So now that we have that, we can write this number as a fraction, and that takes care of that issue. Now the next thing we have to consider is that we have to have, in order to add or subtract fractions, we have to have the same denominators, right? As you can see here, the denominator for the fraction on the left is 2, and the denominator for the fraction on the right is 9. So we have to find a number, a lowest common denominator, that both 2 and 9 divide into evenly. Now, typically what we can do is if we can't think of one, we can multiply these two numbers by each other, and that will give us 1, right? And if we do that, we get 2 times 9, which is 18, and that will work, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to write two fractions, two equivalent fractions, one equivalent to 3/2 and one equivalent to 12 ninths, using that lowest common denominator. Right. So I said equivalent fractions, but now we have to do a little explaining. What do we mean by equivalent fractions? Well, if we write, let's do an example to make it clearer. If we let's say we have the fraction 3/4, right? This fraction has four parts, even though you can't see the fourth part, right? Because the fourth part is what you get when you divide the fraction by when you work out the fraction. Because the fraction is really a division problem, and it's 3 divided by 4. When you do that, you're going to get 0.75. Right? This part is called the ratio value, and this is the part we use to determine whether or not fractions are equivalent. If two fractions have the same ratio value, then they are equivalent. Okay? So let's just write down the parts of a fraction. We already know the ratio value is this part here, the part that you get when you divide the numerator by the denominator. And we know that this is the numerator. This is called the fraction bar, this bar right here. It means division. And this is called the denominator. All right. So here are the four parts. Now, let's find an equivalent fraction of 3/4. How do we do that? It's really simple. All we have to do is multiply the top and bottom by the same number. It can be any number, but it just has to be the same number that we're multiplying by. So let's pick 2. Let's multiply the bottom by 2 and the top by 2, right? And let's go ahead. So we're going to get 4 times 2 is 8, and 3 times 2 is 6. Now, if 6/8 is an equivalent fraction to 3/4, when we divide 6 by the 8, we're going to get 0.75, right? If we do that, 6 divided by 8 on our calculator, we get 0.75. And since we got the same ratio value, that makes them equivalent fractions. So that's what we mean when we say equivalent fractions. Now that we understand that, let's go back and finish our problem. So here we want to get an equivalent fraction for 3/2 that has different numbers. Just like we did over here, we had original fraction of 3/4. We wanted to get an equivalent fraction that has different numbers, right? So all we have to do is find a number that we multiplied 2 by to get 18. So what do we multiply 2 by to get 18? We multiplied it by 9, right? So all we have to do is multiply the top by the same number to get an equivalent fraction. So 9 times 3, that's going to give us 27. So 3/2 and 27 are equivalent fractions. Why? Because if you divide them, if I divide 3 by 2, I'm going to get a ratio value. And if I divide 27 by 18, I'm going to get the same ratio value. So because they have the same ratio value, they're equivalent fractions. And now let's do the same thing for the other fraction, 12 over 9. So 9, we're going to find that number that we need to multiply. So 9 times what gives us 18? 9 times 2. Right? So all we have to do to get equivalent fraction is multiply the top by the same number. So we're going to go 12 times 2 and we're going to get 24. Right. Now, the rules for adding fractions are they have to have the same denominator, and once they do, you're going to keep the denominator, which turns out to be 18, and we're going to add the numerators. So if we add the numerators here, we're going to get 27 plus 24, and that's going to give us 51. Okay, this is great. So now our answer is going to be 51. However, it's 51 over 18. However, if we look at the answer list over here, we see all the numbers are in a mixed number format. So we had to write and we also noticed that our denominator is smaller than the numerator. So what we need to do is write this number in mixed number format. So how do we do that? Well, mixed number is a whole number and a fraction. So first we got to get the whole number. And the way we get the whole number is we divide the denominator into the numerator on a calculator. So that's 51 divided by 18. And we get 2 point something, 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 right? So with that 2 on the left side of the decimal place, that's our whole number. We're going to write that down. For the fractional part, we're going to keep the same denominator of 18, right? And now all we got to do is get the numerator here. So the numerator, we're going to do this. We're going to take the original numerator that we got in our answer, which is 51. We're going to subtract from that what we get when we multiply 2 times 18. The denominator here times the whole number. That gives us 36. Okay. And this is the answer to this is what our new numerator is going to be, because it's actually the remainder. So let's go ahead and do that. 51 minus 36 equals 15. Great. So now we have to remember that the question said to present the sum of the mixed number in simplest form. So if we have a common factor in 15 and 18, so we can reduce this. How do we do that? We simply divide the top and bottom by that common factor. The common factor is 3, right? So we say 15, keep the whole number, 15 over 18, 15 divided by 3, and 18 divided by 3. We can do this as long as it's the same number. And that's going to give us 15 divided by 3 is 5, and 18 divided by 3 is 6. 6. So our answer is going to be 2 and 5, 6. That's the simplest form, right? And this is what we're going to look for in the answer key selection of our answer. And if we look over here, we see that that is answer number B. So I hope this helped. If it did, please remember to like and subscribe so we can continue providing these helpful videos. And I will see you in the next video. Have an amazing day.